So usually the first issue with a DUI investigation is your traffic stop. When you're being stopped, you're being detained, and that's limiting your movement. And that's what the constitutional rights are, because you're being seized at that point. Now, are the police allowed to stop any vehicle they want? No. They must have probable cause to stop you. Now, it could be something as minor as a light being out on your license plate, or it could be something like a speeding ticket or some other traffic violation. So they would have to justify that they have probable cause to contact you in order to investigate a traffic violation or to notify you of something wrong with your vehicle, which technically is a traffic violation. Now, if your vehicle is parked, then they have to have a justification for contacting you inside your parked vehicle, which they would often attribute to a welfare check, to check to make sure you're okay. Now, if they believe there's criminal activities occurring, then they can go investigate that also. Now, once they stop you, then you're detained, you've been seized. The police will approach your vehicle and then they ask you questions. Now, do you have to answer those questions? Generally, no. You're required to provide them with proof that you own the vehicle or the registration of the vehicle, proof that of your driver's license, your identification, and proof of insurance. You provide those documents to the officer. If the officer starts asking you questions, you don't have to answer any further questions. The officer might ask you, "Did you know why I stopped you?" Well, that goes into you admitting, making statements against your best interest, which would raise issues of the Fifth Amendment and your right to remain silent. But that's in a separate video. But then at some point, the officer might say, "Please step out of your vehicle." Again, they're seizing you because they're controlling your body. When the officer asks you that, you should ask them, is that a request or an order? If it's a request, you can decline the request. Say, "No, I'd rather sit here. It's warmer, it's not raining, and I'm fine." If it's an order, then you are being detained because he's controlling where your movement is. Now, you're not under arrest, but you're being detained. So that's just a distinction. You're not free to leave generally. Once you step out of the vehicle, then the officer will start asking you questions or will ask you to perform field sobriety tests. And you can decide if you want to do them or not, but you're not obligated to do them. They're voluntary. And that again gets into your Fifth Amendment rights. Now, when your case is being analyzed, if you've been arrested for DUI, your defense attorney generally will start at the beginning of your case and go through every step of the way to see if there's any errors or any violation of your rights. Because if they find an error, let's say they had no reason to stop you, everything after that should be thrown out, and your case might be thrown out also. Now, when you park your vehicle, or when you're pulled over, you park your vehicle. If it's possible for you to park the vehicle legally, like on the side of the road in a legal parking space, that's much better for you. When you get out of your vehicle, you can lock the vehicle. Push the button on the fob and locks the vehicle. That means your vehicle is secure and they have no reason to go into the vehicle if it's legally parked. Now, if you're arrested for a DUI, the officer might elect to impound your vehicle and they would have a right to search that. And we can talk about that later. But if you lock your vehicle or you park it legally and the officer says, "Oh, can I search your vehicle?" You can say no. He doesn't have a right or obligation to search your vehicle. Now, when you step out of your vehicle, though, the officer may search you and your person. Generally, that's searching you for weapons only. So if you had a weapon on you, the officer's checking you to make sure you don't have a weapon for officer safety. That's, again, another search. But they have to do that for officer safety. Generally, that's justified. But they put you in that position of getting out of the vehicle. If you're in your vehicle and they've stopped you for a regular traffic violation and they have no reason to suspect you're driving under the influence, then they really don't have a reason to ask you to step out of your vehicle. They can ask you to, because it's safer for them not to be standing on the side of the freeway, but they generally can't order you out of your vehicle because there's really no reason for you to have to get out. If you're stopped for a regular traffic ticket, they generally can hold you as long as it would take for them to write the ticket. They can't hold you for an extended period of time waiting for other people to come or some other reason. They can just keep you for a reasonable amount of time. So what happens after you're stopped? They will ask you to step out of the vehicle, and normally at that point, once they've asked you for your license, your registration, and your insurance, they're watching how you provide them to them. They're watching to see if you're shaking, you're confused, if you hand them a Visa card when they ask for your driver's license, something like that. That might show you're impaired. The officer may ask you questions about where you're coming from, where you're going, how much you've had to drink. They're asking you to admit things. Again, that's a Fifth Amendment issue. And then they get you out of the vehicle. They might say that you had odor of alcohol on your breath or person. You had slurred speech, red, watery eyes. You admitted drinking. You had difficulty locating your documents. When you got out of the vehicle, you were stumbling or you had trouble standing. When they look in your vehicle, you have a beer container in the center console or in the cup holder, or you look confused or you're confused about where you are. Those are all reasons which would lend them to believe that you might be under the influence of alcohol. And they might then create a reason for them to start a DUI investigation. Everything that they observe is going to be something that would show that you're under the influence or impaired by alcohol. They don't write down all the things that show that you weren't impaired by alcohol. They only focus on what would show you're impaired. Same thing with field sobriety tests. They're trying to show reasons why you're impaired. You can't stand on one foot and do a pirouette. Well, that's because you're impaired by alcohol. Or you just might be uncoordinated. But they're going to look at it as just consistent with someone being impaired by alcohol and or drugs.